Go ahead. Well, introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Richard Han from Hana. I'm the CEO. I have my colleague Kun Somchai, who's our general manager from Cambodia. I'm very happy to answer any questions you may have about Hana today.
Any presentation?
No. But a lot of people don't want to talk. Maybe I can start, give you some update on how last year happened and how this year is looking like.
นะครับถ้าใครมีคำถามช่วยแจ้งมาเลยนะครับคุณริชาร์ดจะตอบคำถามทุกคำถามนะครับภาษาไทยก็ได้นะครับ
So as you know, last year we have the big effect due to COVID. So like many companies, we have difficulties, but in general, the work from home demand has kept the electronics industry well supported. And we saw a significant improvement starting in the fourth quarter for the demand for many of our products. Okay. So this demand has carried forward into the first quarter, and I will go through the main industries that Hana has exposure to. So if we start with the mobile telecom industry, which accounts for about 32% of Hana's exposure, this was relatively weak during last year, but again in the fourth quarter with the launch of the Apple 12 5G phone, we saw big demand coming through, and not only for, of course, the Apple, but other phones relating to 5G. And 5G, we believe, will give a strong support to the mobile phone business in 2021 and 2022. And we see much improved demand in the first quarter and continuing at least in the second quarter. So this is good news because this is the largest segment for the Hana Group. And after that, about 18% is our automotive business. Now, a lot of you may have read about the shutdown of some of the auto companies because they cannot get semiconductors. And this is true. This is because the automotive business did not plan very well because they're of over-concern for COVID situation. But China, which is the biggest consumer of cars, has come back very strongly, and this surprised the industry. So they were caught with insufficient orders, and as a result of that, they have not got the parts they need because a lot of the semiconductor capacity has gone to PC and mobile phone, gaming, and other electronic devices. Nevertheless, the demand for our electronic products remains very strong, and we saw this starting to recover in Q4, and it remains strong going forward. And some people ask the question, if the car company is shut down, will you not also get shut down? The answer is we do not think so, because what we deliver now goes into a car in the next 6 to 9 months. And we believe that within the next 6 months, the situation will improve for the auto companies. After that, we have industrial, which accounts for about 10% of our group. We also see this recovering because a lot of companies now feel more optimistic about economic recovery due to the introduction of the vaccine. Okay, so we see orders picking up for that. Optoelectronics, which is a similar type of device that goes industrial, also showing equally strong increase. After that, we have PC. PC is also about 8 to 9% of our business. Last year was quite strong, but for us, PC is not an industry that we want to expand because the margins are very low. Nevertheless, this is the first time in 10 years that the PC business actually has grown because of the work from home demand. Next is RFID, radio frequency. So most of the devices we build for that go to hospitality, hotels. So this is still weak. Offices, schools, libraries, even though the situation looks like improving because of the vaccine, people will not come back fully yet. And I think it will take at least till the end of this year. So that still remains weak for us. Consumer, about 7%, is stable. We have some customers who are doing very well and others not so well. But we do see this beginning to improve as people come back and shops start to open up in the US as well. Medical accounts for about 3% of our business relating to hearing aids, and that has been relatively stable last year, and I think will remain similar throughout the course of this year. The other thing that affects our business is the exchange rate. So as you know, the stronger the Thai baht, the more pressure we get on our operating profits. The Thai baht recently has weakened, or shall we say the US dollar has strengthened because of concerns over inflation. Okay, so inflation is a big concern to many investors, and they believe that the Federal Reserve will increase interest rates sooner than they have said, and that has made the dollar index strengthened. So we see the Thai baht coming from around 29.90 to 31.30 now. So that's positive for our gross margins going forward. A stronger dollar is positive for Hana's operating margins. But you must remember that in the first half of last year, when the COVID was at the maximum, the dollar was close to 30, well, actually over 33. So it's a long way to go to get to that level, and I don't think it will get to that level. But at around 31.50 to 32 would be a lot better than we originally thought this year would be, because most people thought that the dollar would be weak for the rest of the year. So I'll stop now and open for any questions from anyone. Questions that are coming in. Do you want to ask entire questions?
ครับคุณริชาร์ดอยากทราบว่าไม่ทราบว่าท่านผู้ชมมีคำถามอะไรนะครับจะได้ตอบได้ตรงคำถามนะครับ
So the margin, I think, as I mentioned earlier, the margin will be affected by the exchange rate. So at the moment, we see strong demand from our semiconductor business and our microelectronics business, which is good. And with the stronger US dollar, then we think that margins can improve from the fourth quarter. As I mentioned earlier, year on year, compared to last year, where the Thai baht was close to 33, that would be still a long way to go before our margins can reach to that point. So it's difficult for me to, I don't give a projection, I don't really know exactly, but I think the margin direction is positive because the Thai baht is becoming weaker and our sales are improving over the fourth quarter. Second question. Okay, the second one. Okay. Okay, so the question about chip shortage situation, as you have read in many news that many companies suffer the situation, they cannot get enough supplies. And I would say that for us, because our planning has been quite good, we don't expect any major disruption due to the shortage in chip situation. But I think we need to be careful, and it's very possible, maybe perhaps later on in the second or third quarter, some of our customers who planning wasn't quite so far out could suffer some shortages. But so far, we have not seen any major impact. And as I mentioned earlier, our automotive customer business still remains strong for us because the lead time for that is 6 to 9 months going forward.
And, this year and next year, what is the revenue growth percentage?
So again, I don't have a target number for revenue percent growth, but I believe that if the situation of shortage in the semiconductor industry continues throughout the course of this year, then we have a good chance to see quite good growth going forward.
And net profit margin for this year?
Well, again, net profit margin is something which we don't give a specific forecast for. A lot will depend, again, on the exchange rate and the volume of business. But I would say in general, I am optimistic that we should see a fairly strong year this year because the Thai baht or the US dollar seems to be getting stronger and the business remains quite strong at this point in time.
About the EV business.
So the question about EV business, as some of you may know, Hana's been developing and researching because we want to go into making power modules that support the EV charging system in the car and the charging the car system. This is a difficult and ambitious project, and we've been working. We're now in our third year of development. Unfortunately, due to the COVID situation, we have been delayed, but I remain positive that we are moving in the right direction, and I'm hopeful by the end of this year or early next year, we should be in a position to test out some of the new products that we are designing and developing. This is a long-term project, but we hope that we can play into this big expansion growth area of EV. And I still remain optimistic that the development and the investment that Hana is putting in will show benefits. So hopefully we can update you more towards the end of this year. If things go better than planned, it may be earlier, but I don't want to tell you something that I'm not sure is going to happen at this point in time.
So what is the investment target for this year?
This year, I'll give you a background. Last year and the year before last, we spent about 1 billion baht for capital investment. This year, we're planning between 2.2 and 2.5 billion baht. So it's more than double, 1.5 times increase. And mostly of the investment is going into our semiconductor expansion because at the moment, the factory is totally full. We are expanding the factory in the UTR by renovating existing buildings. This should give us, in terms of floor space, about 30% increase, which should give us enough capacity to expand over the next few years. But the problem is that the lead time for equipment has gone out about 3 to 4 times. Last year, if you order machinery, you can get within 3 months. Now it's taking about 9 months, if not longer, to get machines. So this makes it very difficult to plan. Okay, but nevertheless, we are making this investment and this expansion. And we did order machines at the end of last year, which are coming in now. So that will help us expand. But the problem is the demand is more than we can deliver because we cannot react so quickly to get the machine. Okay, but our plan is between 2.2 and 2.5 billion this year, which is more than double last year.
So do you have any concern for oversupply semiconductor for next year?
So the oversupply situation, I think, will happen because semiconductor is typically a cyclical industry. But I don't think that this will happen until at least the middle of next year at this point in time, because the real shortage of the semiconductor is at the wafer side, we call the front end. Hana is involved in the back end, which is the assembly side. And the time it takes to expand the front end is at least 2 years, if not longer. So big companies are investing now, but they will not be able to increase their output until at least 1.5 to 2 years from now. And the other thing which has affected the supply chain has been the issue between China and the US. We call it decoupling, because America is trying to stop China expanding in semiconductor by stopping certain companies from giving important types of machinery to expand the output. So China cannot expand as fast as they would like to do. And in the past, China is a big supplier in the supply chain. And so the problem is that they're unable to support the demand. So this is all causing other problems. The other problem is because of the shortage, many companies are increasing their orders to increase the stock, especially car companies, okay? So this will, we believe, continue the demand through the course of the next 12 to 18 months. But I do believe at some point, when a lot of this capacity does come on stream, then we will have an overcapacity situation.
So they heard that the Chinese government reduced the tax for semiconductor. Hana Jiaxing will gain more benefit.
Okay, yes, there was a report that China is supporting the semiconductor industry, but most of that relates to wafer fabrication, which Hana does not do. However, because we are expanding quite aggressively in China to support the local market, we talk to the government and we do get some support. It's not very big, but it's some support because China is very focused to bring the supply chain of semiconductor, both front end and back end, and increase in China.
So the cost will be and the revenue will be much better than last quarter, quarter 4.
In China?
In China.
So yes, we believe we're quite optimistic of the growth of our China operation. You remember, China was the only factory that was shut down during the COVID last year. Thailand never shut down. So we suffered a lot during last year for China. But this year, of course, no shutdown. And we see big demand coming from local Chinese companies. So we are investing in new machinery in order to cope with this demand. But this will start coming through towards Q3, Q4, not immediately. But I feel a lot more optimistic about China, Hana China growth this year because of the big support to bring the supply chain and increase in China.
Do we have any cost impact on the RFID shortage of microdisplay?
Okay, so some of you may know that we have announced a new product line in our American factory in Ohio, making RFID tags. The investment is relatively small, so there's no problem. As you know, Hana has enough money to take care of all our investment needs. We are very excited about this business. We think that this will double the sale of our American operation within 2 years. And so America is running around $20 to $25 million a year. We hope that will be over $50 million next year because of this RFID expansion, which is like we already do RFID, but this is the next level product line that we're developing. And what we do is we have hired a team of experts in this area, and we're going to develop and design and support the demands of RFID, which is growing very, very rapidly because the prices become so cheap now that many companies are putting RFID tags on everything. so they can track it efficiently through the supply chain. Last year, there were over 22 billion tags produced. This business is growing at about 15 to 20% a year, and tags are going on everything, both for tracking and security. They even put tags on bars of chocolate. They're so cheap to stop people stealing them. So this is very exciting business, which we are going to start off in Ohio in the US, but later on we will expand it into Thailand as well.
Hana business cycle is seasonal or not? Which quarter is the best and the worst?
So in the past, we are affected by the seasonal factors, and usually the third quarter was the strongest quarter, and then it goes down, and then Q3 is strongest to support Christmas, and then Q1 will be weakest, especially shut down for Chinese New Year, International New Year, and then start picking up. But over the past few years, this has really kind of changed. So I still think there's a seasonal effect, but it's not as predictable as it used to be in the past. So as I mentioned earlier, lead time machine has stretched out very, very long now. And yes, this is a problem, okay? Because it's very difficult for us to predict if we have to order the machine today, it come at the end of the year. What will be the demand at the end of the year? So at the moment, we're negotiating with our customers who are saying, I want you to increase. I said, yes, you want me to increase today, but will you want me to increase at the end of the year when the machine comes in? So we try to negotiate and lock down an agreement that if I order today and the machine comes in the next 6 to 9 months, that the order that you say you want really will happen. And we try to get some agreement. Sometimes we can, sometimes we can't. But in general, most companies are agreeing to at least cover maybe 60 to 70% of their future orders. So that's quite positive, and I feel quite comfortable about investing on that basis.
Opportunity days, what we have.
Opportunity. Yes, we welcome any shareholders and investors in Hana to come and visit our factory, especially in the UTIA because it's quite close. I think in Q3 our expansion will be finished, so that would be a good time, and I will announce it to anyone who would like to come and visit, and you can come and see the new expansion that we just built. So you're very welcome to come and visit us.
Maybe talk a bit about the diversify of the type of product, where semiconductor, microelectronic.
Okay. Some other questions that people ask about in relation to the cost of logistics, because as you know, shipping costs have gone up a lot, both air freight and sea freight. So this has some impact on us, but again, it's not major. Typically, Hana pays for all the materials that we import, and my customer pays for all the finished goods that are exported from our factory. So we kind of share that responsibility. Okay. The other concern that people are asking is about the increasing cost due to raw materials like palladium, copper, tin. Again, yes, these are going up. Commodities are going up. We have been able to pass on, not all, but most of that to our customer. So hopefully we don't have any major impact, or any impact we get, we can pass on to our customer. But these things, of course, do not help, but I think are manageable, and we don't have too big concern about this issue. I think one of the important things about Hana is our diversity. Okay, we have, as I told you earlier, we have automotive, we have telecom, industrial, computer, opto, RFID, consumer, medical. Every one of these industries have cycles, and it's important to manage those cycles as best you can. Okay, so we continue to look for new opportunities to diversify the company, to reduce our exposure, because as you asked earlier, you know, we are in a cycle and we have to manage that cycle. The other important thing we see is the issue between the US and China. Now it seems that after Trump, the situation is not improving. So what it looks like happening is that we become now like to have two supply chains. We have our China operations supporting China and our Thai operations, Cambodia and the US supporting the rest of the world. The good news is that that Hana has both operations. China is the fastest growing economy in the world. You cannot ignore it. And so we're very lucky that we have a strong manufacturing base, can benefit from that strong growth. But of course, the rest of the world is the rest of the world. And, many Western companies are now thinking that their reliance on China has to be reduced. So they start to move their operations out of China, and we can bring them back to China, to Thailand and to Cambodia. So from Hana's point of view, I think we're well positioned in order to navigate our way through the decoupling situation between these two great superpowers, right? I mean, we cannot affect it. We have to work within, how it develops ourselves. Any other questions from anybody?
Planning for Biden that support R&D semiconductor, any benefit for Hana?
What's it?
I think they provide a fund, more fund from Biden.
A question asked about, does the US government provide any funding and can we benefit from that? Well, the answer is no. Our small company in America will not benefit from this. The US government will focus on the super high-end type of investment, and we are not at that level.
Any chance of the shortage getting worse?
So the question is, do we see a chip shortage getting worse in the second half of this year? No, I think it'll actually improve in the second half of this year, but not much. I think the shortage will remain until towards the end of this year, to be honest.
So what is the percentage of the logistic between by air and by sea?
Okay, about 75 to 80% of our product is sent by air, and the rest is by sea. The situation on air freight has been short for the past year because the airline is in trouble and they reduced the number of flights. So that cost increase already we've been living with that cost increase for the past 12 months. This is not new. Shipping costs have gone up. That is sea shipping costs, right? But again, most of that is taken care of from my customer.
So the raw material, which country mostly ordered?
Our raw materials come from many places, from China, of course, from Malaysia, from Taiwan, not so much from the US, mainly Asia area, right? Like PCBs will come from China. A lot of semiconductors are assembled in China, of course, so that, even by the Western company, but their manufacturing operation is in Asia. Most of our materials come from Asia, so the shipping distance is not that long.
Any effect on the copper, large percentage on copper?
No, copper prices have gone up, but it doesn't affect us significantly. It does affect prices on printed circuit boards, but again, not significantly.
So, and our major customer for the auto mobile is Android or iOS?
Our major customer for mobile is Android. We do support the Apple ecosystem. One of the big areas that we've seen big growth, I don't know if any of you have recently bought a new, say, Samsung or Apple phone, but you may notice that it did not come with a charger. And the reason they're saying is they think everyone has a charger already. Of course, the real reason is they can save money. And what it means is that everyone is going out and buying another high-speed charger, because if any of you are now using 5G, I think you will notice that the battery goes down very quickly because 5G is very power hungry. So people are going out and buying high-speed mobile phone chargers, and Hana makes a lot of chips that go into making these chargers. So this has been a big growth area for us.
Any impact on the ship that calls Suez?
Yeah. No, we don't have any impact as a result of the shipping crisis in the Suez Canal. Okay, so somebody asked the question I answered before, but I will answer again about the shortage of chips. The answer is that we don't have a major effect. So we have two types of business: assembling the chip, okay, and then we use the chip to assemble a product. So that's PCBA, and assembly chip is IC assembly and test. So at the moment, the number of chips coming to us is increasing. Because of the shortage in chips, it may not go as much higher than my customer would like, but whatever he can get, he sends to me to be produced. So as I mentioned earlier, our sales is increasing nicely for our assembly. The chips that we have to buy to make other products may have a shortage later on, but at the moment we do not experiencing any issue today, and a lot has to do with how effectively our customer has placed the order for their chips about 3 or 4 months ago, because there's a lead time between 3 to 6 months, and that's the reason why a lot of car companies had problems, because 6 months ago they thought that the number of cars they have to produce is much less than they can actually sell now, because nobody knows the future. So I don't see any major impact. It could be that if there was no chip shortage, we could have even more higher growth, but of course you never know what that could be, okay? But at the moment, I don't see any major impact. It may be, if we do have something impact, it would be towards the second half of this year. But at the moment, the forecast from our customer is based on what they believe, because remember, many of my customers have their own chip factories, okay? I would say 70% of all our customers have their own chips factory. They don't buy from someone like TSMC, but of course, maybe 30%, 35% will buy from someone like TSMC. So it depends on their relationship with TSMC and how long ago they place the order, you know, how well they manage their supply chain.
The sale for the PCBA in China, Q1.
Well, I don't have any specific numbers for that I can talk about for Q1, but in general, as I mentioned earlier, because of the drive from the Chinese government to support Made in China, they call it Made in China 2025, right? We see a more positive impact on our business in China going forward. But as I mentioned earlier, we are investing, and the time it takes to get the machine, we cannot really enjoy that growth probably until the second half of this year. But certainly the first half of this year in China will be better, because the first half in China last year we had the COVID lockdown. So we should see an improvement, of course, this year over last year.
So what is the percentage impact on the profit if Thai baht strength 1 baht?
I don't have the exact formula, but if you like to look on Hana website, we give a rough estimate how the exchange movement can affect our operating margin. So if you go on www.hanagroup.com and go to the investors, and you see our management discussion and analysis, we give a formula, and you can then try to calculate how this will happen.
Any plan to expand the factory any other location or
Okay, so in terms of factory expansion, as I mentioned earlier, we are expanding the factory in the UTIA by renovating a large warehouse to make it a production area, and this will be ready by the early part of Q3. In Lamphun, we have no facility expansion yet because we still have open capacity, but if the business continues to grow, we are studying the possibility of maybe expanding starting at the end of this year. We already have enough land, as you may know, so that is not a problem. We can easily expand onto our existing factory, but we have not needed to make that decision. In China, we have sufficient space, so we don't need to expand in terms of facility. And Cambodia is still very new, and we are not operating. We're still operating, below 30% at the moment. So we have a lot of work to do in Cambodia. So in general, we are not spending a lot of money on the facility expansion. Most of the investment is in machinery to expand, and most of that investment is coming through in the IC assembly part in the UTIA.
maybe talk about NPI.
So you may be interested to know about the development that we continue to do in a UTR in relation to new package development. We have a strong team of designers, and we continue to develop particularly sensors that go into mobile phones, because that's the biggest market we have. And we've been quite successful in developing new sensor technology, and some of which we are able to file for a patent to protect ourselves. And this drives future growth. And during last year, even though the business was difficult, we continued to spend heavily on this development. And it's paying off now, because a number of our customers like the new designs and development that we have made, and they are using them in their new models coming forward. And this is very important for future growth and development. So this is something that Hana spends a lot of money on. The other thing is automation, because salaries will continue to rise always. This is normal. And we have a strong automation group which focuses on automation and reducing the labor content in our assembly process. Okay, and we have had very good results. And today we are producing more product with less people. And when you automate something, you of course reduce your labor costs, but also you improve your quality, because you don't have a human being making a mistake. So this is all part of our continuous process to reduce costs and improve quality. And this is what my customer wants. He wants a company that can produce it cheaper at a higher quality. And that wins us the market share from the competition.
How about EV business? Are we going to expand?
Is that a question?
Yeah.
No,
I think most Thai people they keep asking.
Yeah.
Anything related to EV.
So we asked the question, go back about EV. A number of our auto customers are already giving us projects that relate to the EV. One particular interesting project is in the regeneration braking system. If you understand anything about EV, when you're braking, you create energy, which can then feed back to charge the battery. Okay, so that's an interesting project. But at the moment, our real focus for EV will be, as I mentioned earlier, in our development in Korea, which we hope by the end of this year or early next year, we have some more positive news if our developments look strong. But there's still a lot of work to be done at this point in time.
About the Vietnam, anything relating with Vietnam, the competition.
Is that a question?
They also ask.
Some question about how strong is the competition from Vietnam for Thailand, and the answer is it's very strong. Vietnam has a larger population. The labor rates are cheaper. And most of the business that has had to leave China because of the tariff have gone to Vietnam and not Thailand. Okay, so I would say Vietnam is our strongest regional competitor today. So we need to be aware of that.
Anything impact to Hana now this year?
I think the competition from Vietnam will always be there, but I don't see it necessarily, impacting our business. Hana has our own customer base, and they feel comfortable with our service and our support. But of course, when new business comes, new customers have a choice. They can go to Vietnam, they can go to Thailand, they can go to the Philippines, they can go to Malaysia. So if companies are starting to leave China because of the tariff issue, then we have to compete against all these other regional companies. And Vietnam is the one always, I think, gives us the strongest competition.
I think the last thing is what is the strength of the Hana for the delivery?
So finally, a lot of people ask the question, why do you think Hana, how is Hana better than the competition? And I don't think there's anything exceptionally, one thing special about Hana compared to anybody else. We're very focused on our business. We do our best to manage and support the growth of our customers. We are careful financially to manage the business because we understand that the business is a cycle, and you have to be very careful. You can enjoy the good time, but when the bad time comes, that you are strong enough to get through it so that you're there again for the good time. And therefore, that is, I think, an important factor when you invest in a company. You must look at the ability to develop and grow and see through both good and bad times. So, when you look to invest in any company, and Hana's just one, as I mentioned earlier, you should look at the financial strength of a company, look at the track record of the company, and try to understand how they manage the business. Okay, what is the long-term prospects, and can they finance the growth going forward? Every company, I think, has a character, okay, which relates to the style of management of every company. So I'm not saying that Hana is better than anybody else, but you need to look at the company, look at the management, and then make a decision on how best you want to invest your money in the future of that company going forward. So I hope that you found this review of interest, and I welcome any of you who would like to visit our facility, I will organize an open day for individual investors, perhaps in Q3, when the factory is open. It'll be interesting for you to come, and we welcome anyone who would like to visit us. Thank you very much.